As we come on the air, criminal defendant Donald Trump is heading into the week with a dominant hold on the Republican Party and its presidential primary. Last night, Trump won caucuses in Idaho and Missouri. He also swept the Republican convention caucuses in Michigan. And today, voters in our nation's capital are voting in the D.C. Republican presidential primary. It might be Nikki Haley's first shot to pick up a win, even as Trump gets closer to clinching the nomination. In just 2 days, voters in 16 states and 1 territory, they will cast their ballots on Super Tuesday. Then, on Thursday, President Biden will deliver the State of the Union address. And by Friday, Congress must reach a deal to avoid a partial government shutdown. It is a week for the history book, so who better to join us now than NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. Good morning, Michael.
Morning, Alicia. How are you?
I am happy to see you, though I have to say a little disoriented without your fireplace behind you.
Right. I should have a guy with a billboard in the background carrying it around so that people know who I am.
Just bring the fire. That's all we know. Just bring the fire.
We can do something about that.
Exactly.
Michael Beschloss, this moment that we are currently living through, how will history view this moment? Put it in context, because you have turmoil, you have one could call an unprecedented situation happening within the Republican Party apparatus. The polling numbers, it is what it is. You have the court cases, all of this rolling into a very consequential week on top of a State of the Union address.
Yeah, well, this is the year, I can say it very simply, Simone, when America either became a dictatorship or remained a democracy. That question will be known within, 8 months, November? And this week will have a lot to do with it, because you've got President Biden giving a State of the Union that probably is going to be one of his biggest audiences this year, and his best chance to tell people what he wants to do, the same way that Bill Clinton in 1996 said the era of big government is over, caused a lot of people to look at him as something other than a liberal that had lost the 1994 congressional elections.
You know what? One of the things, talk about history in the context of the moment for me, it's really compelling in that you have a President Biden who's, as you noted, is about to go before the country with the State of the Union, sort of lay out, okay, this is the road we've traveled together so far. This is the road ahead. Same time, you've got Viktor Orban, Hungarian Prime Minister, traveling to Mar-a-Lago to visit with the president. What? I don't even know the question here, because it's so frustrating that you have one guy who's embracing this sort of authoritarian tract and trying to really kind of grind it out of America to force us into this space, in our face with it, and telling us that what we're seeing and what we feel in reaction to that is not real. Is there any other moment in history, particularly if you look back at the 1930s and the elements of fascism that tried to rise up at that time? How do you contextualize this moment in the context of what we know historically and how we dealt with that then, and how, in my view, we're not dealing with it today?
Perfect comparison, because 1940, 1941, we were dealing, just as you say, with a threat of fascism at home from people like Father Coughlin and sort of toughs that would beat up Jewish people and black people outside of rallies. And at the same time, abroad, the danger of Hitler and Mussolini and fascism around the world. So into that moment came Franklin Roosevelt with his State of the Union address, January of 1941, in which he said, America stands for 4 freedoms, both at home and around the world. You know, speech, want, religion, freedom from want, freedom from fear, freedom of speech and religion. And that goes for the world and at home. So what I'm saying is that we are sadly like that in 2024, because we are not only facing, as you said, a domestic authoritarian threat from Donald Trump and people who want to see this a dictatorship next year, but at the same time, he is connecting with dictators abroad, Viktor Orban, Putin, perhaps the leader of Turkey, possibly elements in China and elsewhere. These people are going to lock arms, and, I'm only responsible for the past, not the future, but given all this, if these hostile governments would like to see Trump elected, take a look at October 2024. The chances that they're not going to make a big effort to make trouble and chaos to make Joe Biden look bad, I think those chances are very large.
So he tried to overturn a fair and free election. We look at the company that he is keeping, those who are visiting him at Mar-a-Lago, Michael. This you have just yesterday from one of his rallies in Greensboro, North Carolina. He's actually trying to flip the script and say that it is President Biden who's a threat to democracy. Let me read you this from the Washington Post. Donald Trump made a renewed attempt to turn criticism that he is a threat to democracy on its head, accusing President Biden without evidence of conspiring against the United States with his policies at the southern border. I wonder in what ways you expect the State of the Union address we're going to hear from President Biden on Thursday. Yes, he will take credit for the things that his administration has done. To what extent will he also be creating a contrast with Donald Trump?
He has to, and that's what Roosevelt did in 41. He said this is not a normal year. Americans have to make a choice. We have to choose essentially between freedom and democracy or worldwide slavery and dictatorship. Any other year, that would be an overstatement. When people running for office in this country for president say the most important American election in history, usually it's not. It's over tax cuts or something. This year, it could have to do whether people literally end up going to prison by the threat of Donald Trump, who has threatened to use our police and our military forces to go after his political enemies.
He's being very clear about what he wants to do. This is not a guess.
It's frustrating. Right? It's like he's telling you, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, whatever."
Yeah. And even, just even the way that the write-up in the Washington Post about his comments last night, it's as though he accused without evidence. It's also not true.
Right.
It is also not true. Michael, is this an anomaly? Like, have we ever had this level of lying and just pure attempts of gaslighting from a candidate who once was also who is a former president looking to be the president again?
I've seen a lot of lying throughout American history. This is stratospheric. This goes way beyond the level of anything you've seen before. And the other thing is that people should recognize never, ever have we seen a major party nominee or ex-president say, elect me, and my promise is I will be a dictator. I will tell you what to do. I will send some of you to prison. I may even start wars to, help myself politically and strengthen myself in the way the dictators do. And so all I'm saying is, for anyone who is anxious about this choice this fall, America has got a very stark decision to make, and that is he has told you what this is going to look like in a year, and anyone who votes for him or decides not to vote and allow him to become president has made a very big statement. So,
you're a historian and not a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Thank God for everyone.
As we may need from time to time. Right. But, Michael, help us, if you can. What is it about people in their move towards this type of a leader? I mean, I put it in terms of, are you really that desperate that you're going to sacrifice your own personal freedoms, thinking that this guy who's telling you he's going to be a dictator for a day, okay? Because
no dictator is ever a dictator.
That's happened a lot in history where a guy takes all the power and goes, you know what, here, have it back in 24 hours.
Don't believe anything.
Why are people sort of susceptible to believing that? And moving into that space so readily without critically stepping back and going, I'm looking around me and looking around the world and seeing where this type of behavior has not led to good things, it's not elevated people's freedoms, but has taken those freedoms away. And they're like, okay, let's do that. What do you have some understanding of what?
Well, I think it begins
people?
with, the schools don't teach civics anymore. They've cut out a lot of history and social studies. So a lot of very smart people around the country with very good intentions no longer really know the difference between dictatorship and democracy. Plus, if we get to this fall And if there's chaos in the world and it makes Joe Biden look like some elements of Jimmy Carter in October of 1980, a lot of people told pollsters, we think Carter is a good person, but he's lost control. If that happens, and let's say there's domestic unrest in American cities, I'm afraid you're going to see, to put it very specifically, independent women in the suburbs of Philadelphia saying, Trump makes my skin crawl and I hate what he's going to do, but Biden has lost control and we have to do something. God help us if we come to that. It may happen.
You know, Michael, that Donald Trump is out on the stump bragging about overturning Roe versus Wade.
Absolutely.
They are trying to figure out what to do in light of this ruling from the Alabama Supreme Court on IVF, which is incredibly politically unpopular. I want you to take a listen to what Jill Biden had to say about Trump. This is Friday in Atlanta.
All he's doing is talking about himself.
Donald Trump is dangerous to women and to our families. We simply cannot let him win. We can't wake up on November 6th like we did in 2016, terrified of the future ahead of us, thinking, oh my God, what just happened? What are we going to do now? We must re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
You know, Michael, I think when the Supreme Court decided to take up Trump's immunity claim, it felt to a lot of folks who were eager to see accountability, as though the world, it tilted on its axis a little bit, and that yes, this was always going to be about voters. This was always going to be about a plea for democracy. That is now even more in focus, voters as the final line, right? As the people who are going to hold the line on our democracy. It's my sense that that message is going to be the one we hear from now into November.
I think it is, and I think it's a very fair one, because that is what is at issue this year. Take a look, to come back to the 1940 parallel that Michael Steele raised, which he's absolutely right in doing. Franklin Roosevelt, in his State of the Union address, he didn't put it this way, but what he was conveying was, you may have problems with some of my policies, you may not like me, but I'm the only person who is standing between you Americans and the world and dictators like Hitler and Mussolini and the Imperial Japanese. It is not overstatement. So if Joe Biden on Thursday night can make this, essentially one sentence that everyone remembers along the lines of something as simple as the era of big government is over, he will have used his opportunity.
And just real quick on that point, Simone, and get the Republicans in the House to boo democracy.
Sure.
Because that's essentially that's the contrast. That's going to be the contrast.
It's interesting as we talk about democracy. I mean, we are sitting here, and this Sunday, today, is the commemoration of the 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, where folks like a young John Lewis and protesters in Selma marched across that bridge. And today, Vice President Harris is going to join others, Reverend Sharpton, civil rights leaders, marching across that bridge. March 7th is the actual anniversary of Bloody Sunday. March 7th, also the State of the Union.
Yes, and what the anniversary of Selma tells me is, Lyndon Johnson, as a result of what happened in Selma, came out a week later for a voting rights bill that was passed in the summer of 1965, but he wouldn't have done it unless there were people demonstrating in Selma and everyone else. So any of you who think that you can just wait on some leader to save you, you can't do it. Voters got to vote. People have got to be involved in the system. And if you like democracy, as I dearly beg you to do, please defend it this year because it needs it.
Michael Beschloss, just thank you.
Thank you. Love being together always.
Thank you.